These days, as you know, stories don't really get resolved, they get parked, and the Lineker story has now been parked. Um, but there's so much Lineker fallout. And if you just go back to yesterday and Prime Minister's questions, which the government sort of, the budget eclipsed everything really about Prime Minister's questions, but we should go back and have a look at it. Uh, Keir Starmer accused the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, of jumping on a political bandwagon. The Lineker one? Or the invasion one. I'm not sure which was the bandwagon. Sunak has defended the fact that Richard Sharp has been appointed by saying two things really. A, it was done before my time, so not my problem, mate. And B, there's an ongoing investigation, so not my problem, mate. Keir Starmer also called Richard Sharp Sunak's friend, and that wasn't disputed at the dispatch box, so that's one to take home, I suppose. It's what's not said which is important when it comes to Prime Minister's questions. And, and Sunak then used the same tactic with Lineker. He says, oh, not my problem, mate. It's dealt with by the BBC. Independent. But Starmer pointed out that MPs, Conservative MPs, were quite, I'm going to quote you, howling with rage over a tweet, signing letters in the dozens, desperately trying to conceal to cancel a football highlight show. You see, I'm reading that one. And he later called these people playground bullies. I think that's right, playground bullies. People like Nadine Dorries. Well, I'm not going to dispute that. And he said, why doesn't he, Sunak, take responsibility to stand up to his snowflake MPs waging war on free speech? I mean, it's clever stuff, even if delivered with a sort of dry enthusiasm of somebody who's selling ice creams in the theatre rather than being up on stage. The Prime Minister, in turn, accused Keir Starmer of being a political opportunist, but he failed to confirm. He failed to confirm that no government officials contacted the BBC or put pressure on the BBC to suspend Gary Lineker last Friday. He failed to confirm that. So presumably, we can draw from that failure not only that government officials were putting pressure on the BBC to suspend Gary Lineker after we thought that that matter was sort of going to be quietly concluded, after Gary Lineker had said that he was expecting to be presenting Match of the Day at the weekend. So that is where the pressure came from. That is why there was the change. I did wonder. There was clear progress from Starmer and absolute evasion from the Prime Minister. So, in terms of Prime Minister questions and who scored, it was Starmer 1, Sunak 0. And on budget day, you would expect the Prime Minister to perform better, and particularly for the Prime Minister to perform better on questions that he could anticipate, in the same way as that question which every minister and every politician from the Conservative side should now anticipate: what are the safe and legal routes for somebody to come to the UK to apply for asylum, if they indeed have good reason to apply for asylum and would automatically qualify. So we think of Tim Lawton's young lad from Africa. We think of the person from Iran, and so on. What are the safe and legal routes? This was a question put to Suella Braverman on the 22nd of November last year, and all she could do was agree that the person in question would probably need to get a small boat across the channel and then claim asylum when they got to British soil. She is now planning with her new law to make that illegal. So what are the safe and legal routes for somebody who is who would qualify absolutely for asylum should they be able to make it to this country? Or are we expecting Europe to take up every asylum seeker and not do anything at all about our international duty and responsibility under the Refugee Convention that we have signed and that we were partly responsible for bringing into order in 1951?